It was almost midnight. The world around was so silent, as if the entire planet had fallen into a deep sleep. Somewhere far off, a jackal howled. The air carried a strange, unnatural chill, like someone breathing from inside the shadows. In a remote village in Bangladesh called Kalodanga, people rarely speak its name out loud, because this village hides a terrible ancient history. They say, deep beneath the thick jungle surrounding the village sleeps a terrifying entity, a Jinn. But not just any Jinn, he is the King of Jinn. The elders whisper, this Jinn drinks human blood, human flesh is his feast, and the most horrifying part, if he ever fully awakens, the entire village could vanish forever. That very night, something unnatural happened. A young man named Rashed lived in the village. Rashed was fearless. He laughed at all the ghost and Jinn stories. While everyone else avoided the jungle after dark, Rashed would walk right in, grinning. That night, he told his friends Sohel and Mizan, "Come on, let's go into the Kalodanga jungle tonight. Let's see if this so-called Jinn really exists." Sohel shook his head in fear. "Are you crazy? Everyone warns us never to go there." Rashed just laughed louder. "It's all made-up stories. Tonight I'll prove it." Mizan hesitated, but finally gave in. The three grabbed flashlights and headed out. The jungle path was pitch black. The trees were so tall and thick, moonlight barely touched the ground. An unnatural silence hung everywhere. Suddenly, rustle. Sohel froze. "Did you hear that?" Rashed shrugged. "Just a jackal." But then it came again, closer. Rustle, rustle. Mizan whispered, trembling, "I don't like this. Let's go back." Right then, all three flashlights died at once. Total darkness. A blackness so thick it felt like the sky had been covered in black cloth. Sohel's voice shook. "Rashed, turn on the flashlight." Rashed clicked the switch. Nothing. Click. And then, from far away, a horrifying roar. Not an animal, something else. The ground itself trembled. Then, in the darkness, two glowing red eyes appeared. Not human eyes. Bigger, much more terrifying. They stared straight at them. Sohel whispered in terror, What is that?" For the first time, Rashed felt real fear, because those eyes were moving closer. Then, out of the shadows, stepped a massive black figure, its body like swirling smoke, curved horns on its head, mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. It smiled, a sickening, ear-splitting grin. "Ha ha 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 ha!" The voice sounded like it came from inside a cave. Then it spoke. "After so long, I finally have humans." Mizan screamed, "Run!" They bolted, but behind them, whoosh! Rashed stopped dead. He heard Sohel scream, "Help!" Rashed looked back and froze in horror. The monster held Sohel high in the air with one long black arm. Sohel was screaming. In the next instant, the monster opened its mouth, teeth dripping red like blood, and then crunch. Sohel's head separated from his body. Blood sprayed everywhere. Rashed and Mizan stood paralyzed in shock. The monster slowly turned towards them. Its eyes burned even brighter red. It spoke again.
You have no idea whose kingdom you've entered. Then it pounded its chest and roared, I am the King of the Jinn. The jungle shook, trees swayed violently. Rashed and Nizan realized this night could be their last. But they didn't know the worst part yet. This Jinn didn't just want to feed. He wanted something far more terrifying. He wanted to turn the entire village into his kingdom of eternal darkness. And the plan had already begun tonight.
The jungle was now silent as death itself. Just moments ago, the sound of 3 pairs of feet echoed through the trees. Now, only one sound remained. Drip, drip, drip. The wet, sickening sound of blood hitting the ground. Sohel's torn body lay sprawled on the earth. His head had rolled a few feet away, eyes still wide open, frozen in pure terror. Rashed and Mizan stood frozen. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably, because right in front of them stood that monstrous being, the King of the Jinn. His form was smoke one moment, solid the next, eyes like burning red coals piercing the darkness. He slowly bent down toward Sohel's corpse. Then he did something that made Rashed and Mizan's hearts stop. With long black claws, he tore off a chunk of flesh and shoved it into his mouth. Crunch, chew, crunch. He closed his eyes in pleasure and spoke. Human flesh. After 100 years, I taste it again. His voice rumbled like thunder trapped inside a mountain. Mizan couldn't take it anymore. He screamed, "Run!" They ran with everything they had, crashing through bushes, thorns tearing at their skin, branches whipping their faces. But then, from behind, came that horrifying laugh again. Ha 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 ha. That laugh told them everything. The King of the Jinn was toying with them. Suddenly, Mizan skidded to a stop. A massive tree blocked their path. But the problem was, they had never seen this tree on the way in. Rashed panted. This wasn't here before. Before Mizan could answer, the shadow of the tree moved. Then, from that shadow, slowly emerged the King of the Jinn. He was already standing right in front of them. Rashed's heart hammered so loud he could hear it in his ears. With a shaking voice, he asked, Who are you?" The Jinn slowly tilted his head. His red eyes flared brighter. "Who am I?" Then he roared, "I am the fire that humans imprisoned. I am the curse that was chained beneath the earth." He raised one hand. From deep underground came a grinding sound. Grrr. The soil cracked open. Then they rose. Skeletons, human skeletons. 1, 2, 3, 10, 20. Dozens of them climbed out of the ground. Red fire burned inside their empty eye sockets. Mizan whispered in horror, These were people." The King of the Jinn laughed again. "Yes, just like you, they were people." Then he spoke slowly. 100 years ago, this village imprisoned me. A fakir with his spells bound me beneath the soil. His eyes suddenly blazed. But tonight, you broke the seal. Rashed jerked. "Us?" The Jinn roared. "Yes. When you moved that ancient gravestone in the jungle, my imprisonment ended." Rashed's mind raced back. When they entered the jungle, they had sat on an old gravestone for fun.
they had pushed the stone aside. Underneath was a strange black symbol. Rashed's body went ice cold. He understood now. That was the seal. The King of the Jinn stepped closer. The skeletons circled around Rashed and Mizan, trapping them. He spoke. Tonight is only the beginning. Within the next 7 nights, I will devour this entire village. Then he looked up at the sky and roared, "This world will once again be my kingdom." Right at that moment, from far away, a sound floated through the night, the call of the azan. The King of the Jinn froze, his face twisted in pain and rage. He snarled, "No, that sound." He cracked with fury. His body began to tremble. In seconds, the skeleton sank back into the earth. The Jinn himself started dissolving into smoke. But before vanishing completely, he locked eyes with Rashed and hissed, "I will return, and when I do, not a single soul in your village will be left alive." Then he was gone. The jungle fell silent again, but on the ground, Sohel's blood still dripped, and in the wind, one phrase lingered. "The King of the Jinn has awakened." Rashed and Mizan didn't know yet. Something even worse had already begun inside the village, because that same night, in one of the houses, a small child suddenly sat up in his sleep and in a tiny voice said, "He has come." His eyes were completely red.
It was deep into the night. Every house in the village had its lights out. A thick fog rolled through the streets, swallowing everything in unnatural silence. But in one corner of the village, at Hashem Ali's house, something abnormal was happening. Hashem Ali's youngest son, Rifat, only 7 years old, suddenly sat up in his sleep. His mother slept beside him, unaware. Soft child breathing, then sudden stillness. Rifat slowly lifted his head. In the darkness, his eyes glowed. Red, pure fire red. A twisted smile slowly crept across his lips. Then, in a very low voice, he said, "I have returned." But that voice wasn't Rifat's. It was heavy, ancient, echoing from inside a cave. Right then, his mother woke up. Confused, she asked, "Rifat, why are you awake, Beta?" Rifat slowly turned his head toward her. When she saw the burning red in his eyes, she jerked back in fear. "Your eyes? Why are they like that?" Rifat calmly slid off the bed. The moment his feet touched the floor, thunk, thunk, a strange sound like bones cracking. His mother sat up quickly. "What's wrong with you?" Suddenly, Rifat's head tilted at an impossible angle. His smile stretched wider, unnaturally wide. Then he whispered, "I'm hungry." His mother thought he was just hungry for food. "Okay, let me get some rice from the kitchen." She turned away, and then a ripping sound came from behind. Tear. She spun around, and what she saw ripped a blood-curdling scream from her throat. Rifat was no longer human. His mouth had stretched impossibly large, teeth sharpened into jagged points, and he had already clamped down on her hand. Blood sprayed. She screamed, "Help! Help me!" But Rifat didn't let go. He bit harder. Then, crunch! A chunk of her arm tore free. Rifat stuffed the bloody meat into his mouth. His eyes shone with savage joy. He chewed slowly. Crunch, chew, crunch.
His mother collapsed to the floor, shaking, but in the next second, Rifat lunged at her throat, and the room filled with the thick, metallic smell of blood. A few minutes later, the room was completely silent. On the floor lay the mangled body of Hashem Ali's wife. Rifat sat beside her, his face, hands, clothes drenched in blood. Then he slowly raised his head and looked into the darkness. Something else looked out through his eyes, a terrifying entity. He whispered, "It has begun." At that exact moment, on the other side of the village, Rashed and Mizan came running back, gasping for breath. Their bodies trembled violently. Mizan whispered in terror, "We made a huge mistake, a huge mistake." Rashed's mind replayed the Jinn's words. 7 nights. He had said within 7 nights the entire village would be finished. Right then, from somewhere far off, came a scream, a woman's scream. Then, silence again. Rashed spoke slowly. "It started." Mizan, shaking. "What?" Rashed whispered, "The King of the Jinn has begun his hunt." At that exact moment, all the village dogs started howling together. In the moonlight, at the window of a distant house, a small shadow stood, its face completely covered in blood, and its eyes burning like fire, pure red. It looked straight toward Rashed and smiled, a smile that was not human.
That night was cursed. In the moonlight, the village of Kalodanga stood unnaturally still. But behind that silence hid a terrible hunger, a hunger for human flesh. Inside Hashem Ali's house, the sharp smell of fresh blood drifted through the air. On the floor lay Rifat's mother, her body torn apart. Her throat was almost completely gone. Beside her sat little Rifat, but he was no longer the innocent 7-year-old boy. His eyes burned like fire. Dried blood crusted around his mouth. A twisted, unnatural smile played on his lips. Suddenly, his body began to shake. His bones twisted and cracked from within. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Rifat placed his hands on the floor and slowly rose onto all fours. His back arced unnaturally, his fingers elongated, his nails sharpened into razor-like claws. From his throat came a growl, not human, not animal, something far worse. Then a knock at the door. Thump, thump. Hashem Ali pushing from outside. "Open the door! Why were you screaming like that?" The door slowly creaked open. Hashem Ali stepped inside. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Then his eyes fell to the floor. Blood everywhere. Then he saw his wife's mutilated body. A horrifying scream tore from his throat. "Allah!" Right then, a rustle behind him. Rustle. He slowly turned. In the dark corner stood Rifat, but the boy's body was bent at impossible angles, blood dripping from his face, eyes blazing red fire. Hashem Ali's heart froze. "Rifat!" he whispered. Rifat slowly tilted his head. Then, in a voice that wasn't his, "I am not Rifat. I am hunger." Suddenly, he lunged. His claws ripped across Hashem Ali's chest. Tear! Blood sprayed. Hashem Ali collapsed to the floor. But Rifat didn't stop. He climbed onto his father's chest. Then, crunch! He tore out a chunk of throat flesh. Blood poured down his face. He
He chewed slowly. Crunch, chew, crunch. The room filled only with the sound of meat being ripped and devoured, and strange guttural growls from deep in his throat. Moments later, silence returned. 2 corpses lay on the floor. Between them sat Rifat, his belly swollen, but his eyes still burned with hunger. He slowly turned toward the window. A smile spread across his blood-smeared face. Then he whispered, "More." At that exact moment, on the other side of the village, Rashed and Mizan were running. Suddenly, they stopped dead. Something lay in the middle of the road. Rashed switched on his flashlight. The beam hit it, and their blood turned to ice. A human body, but no head. The head lay several feet away on the other side of the road. The chest had been torn open and eaten. A sharp gasp, flashlight click. Mizan whispered, shaking, Who did this?" Right then, a laugh came from behind them, a child's laugh. Rashed slowly turned. In the distance, on a tree branch under the moonlight, a small shadow perched. It was Rifat. Blood dripped from his mouth. In his hand, a human bone. He was chewing it. Crunch, crunch. Then he looked straight at Rashed and said, "Your turn is coming." Suddenly, the darkness all around began to move. From the jungle emerged more shadows, human-shaped, but their bodies were rotting, eyes glowing red fire. They were the dead awakened by the King of the Jinn. Rashed understood in that moment. This wasn't just one Jinn. This was the birth of a kingdom of blood, and the first night of that kingdom had already begun.
The night grew even deeper. Above Kalodanga village, the moon hung low, but its light felt wrong tonight. Cold, fearful. The air carried a sickening smell, rotting flesh mixed with fresh, warm blood. Rashed and Mizan stood frozen in the middle of the road. Perched on a tree branch above them was Rifat. His small face was soaked in blood. In his tiny hands, a human bone. He gnawed at it slowly. Crunch, crunch. Mizan's whole body shook. He whispered, That's not human anymore." Rashed's heart pounded so hard it hurt because he could see it. Inside Rifat's eyes stared something else, a monstrous entity. Suddenly, Rifat slowly stood up on the branch. His small body began to stretch, unnaturally tall. His bones cracked and pulled from within. Fuck, fuck, fuck. His childlike frame twisted into something deformed, arms elongated, claws lengthened into knife-sharp blades. His face, no longer human, lips torn apart, teeth jutting out like fangs. Rashed whispered in horror, "Something possessed him." Rifat tilted his head sharply. Then, in a voice that was 2 voices at once, a child's innocence mixed with a deep demon's rumble. "I am only a messenger. My king is coming." Right then, from beneath the ground came a terrifying sound. Grrr. The road itself began to tremble. Mizan screamed in panic. "The ground is moving!" The center of the road split open.
Black hands clawed upward, one, then another, then a head emerged, a decayed human face, empty eye sockets burning with red fire. More and more rose from the earth, the dead. 1, 2, 10, corpses crawling out of graves, bodies rotted, bones exposed, yet they walked. Rashed stumbled backward. They're coming out of the graves! From the branch, Rifat let out a piercing, unnatural laugh. Ha 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 ha! These are my king's soldiers! The undead slowly closed in around them. The stench of rot filled the air. One corpse, half its face gone, lunged at Mizan. Mizan hit the ground hard. He screamed, "Rashed, save!" Before he could finish, the corpse sank its teeth into his throat. Crunch! Blood sprayed in an arc. Mizan's scream shattered the night. 2 more undead grabbed his arms and legs. They began to tear into his flesh. Rip, tear. Mizan's cries grew weaker, then silent. Rashed stood paralyzed, watching his friend being eaten alive by the dead, his eyes wide with frozen terror. Rifat looked down and smiled. 1 down. Then he threw his head back and screamed to the sky, "King, the path is ready for you!" At that instant, from the jungle came a roar so powerful it felt like mountains cracking. The air turned ice cold. The sky darkened as black clouds rolled in. Deep in the jungle's darkness, 2 enormous red eyes ignited. Eyes as big as treetops. Rashed's blood ran cold. He knew the King of the Jinn was coming. Slowly, from the shadows, a colossal figure emerged, nearly 20 feet tall, body made of swirling black smoke. 2 massive curved horns crowned its head, teeth like burning coals in its maw. Each step shook the earth. The undead bowed their heads in reverence. Rifat leaped from the tree and knelt before it. "King," whisper in awe and fear. The monster slowly turned its gaze towards Rashed. Its eyes blazed like twin infernos. Then it smiled, a sickening, world-shaking grin. "Ha ha 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 ha!" Its voice thundered like lightning striking stone. "At last, I am free!" He raised one massive hand to the sky. "From this night forward, this village is my kingdom." Then he lowered his gaze to Rashed and spoke slowly, "And you will be my first sacrifice." Rashed felt his heart stop, because he understood before this night ended, the village would drown in a massacre of blood.
The night refused to end. Black clouds choked the sky over Kalodanga village. The air felt like frozen fingers brushing against skin, death itself walking among the houses. Rashed stood alone in the middle of the road. Before him towered the monster, the King of the Jinn, a colossal black smoke body, massive curved horns, eyes blazing like twin furnaces of red fire. All around him stood dozens of the undead, rotting flesh hanging from bones, red flames flickering in hollow eye sockets. At Rashed's feet lay Mizan's torn, lifeless body. Rashed's heart was locked in terror, but his legs refused to move, as if rooted to the cursed earth. The king slowly advanced. Each step cracked the ground. He bent low until his burning gaze was level with Rashed's face. His breath reeked of decay and fresh blood. He roared, "Human, 100 years ago, your ancestors dared to imprison me." His eyes flared brighter. "Tonight, I collect the debt." His enormous clawed hand reached out toward Rashed. Rashed squeezed his eyes shut. This was it, the end. Then, from the darkness came a voice. "Stop!" The king froze. Every rotting head turned. On the far side of the road stood an old man, white beard flowing, a simple staff in his trembling hand. Maulana Karimuddin, the eldest and most respected soul in the village. He walked slowly, lips moving in quiet recitation. The king's eyes narrowed to slits. He snarled, "You, descendant of that fakir?" The old man replied calmly, "Yes, the one who bound you 100 years ago was my grandfather." Rashed's heart raced with sudden hope. Maulana Karimuddin struck his staff against the ground. Then he raised his voice and began chanting, loud, powerful Quranic verses mixed with ancient protective incantations. The wind suddenly whipped into a vortex around them. On the earth beneath the king, strange glowing symbols ignited. The undead soldiers began to convulse. Their rotting bodies smoked as if set ablaze from within. One by one, they collapsed, crumbling back into the soil. Cracking bones, sizzling decay sounds, undead moans turning to screams. The king let out a furious roar. "No!" Black smoke poured from his form. He clamped both hands over his ears. "Silence that sound!" Voice cracking with pain and fury. Maulana Karimuddin chanted louder. Lightning cracked across the sky. A massive circle of blinding white light erupted on the ground, trapping the king inside. He thrashed wildly within the barrier. The earth shook with his rage. "I will not be imprisoned again." Suddenly, he threw his head back and screamed, "Messenger!" In that instant, Rifat leaped from the shadows like a feral beast. He charged straight at the old man and pounced. His razor claws tore across Maulana Karimuddin's chest. Rip! The old man fell hard. Blood bubbled from his mouth. The chanting stopped. The glowing circle flickered, then died. Sharp tearing sound, heavy thud, gurgling breath fading. The king rose once more, free. His eyes now pure molten fire. He looked at Rifat and smiled. "Good work, little one." Dark, approving growl. Then, without hesitation, he lifted the old man's body. In one brutal motion, he tore the head clean off. Crunch! Blood rained down. Rashed screamed, "No!" The king slowly turned back to Rashed.
Blood dripped from his jagged teeth. He laughed. Now no one remains to stop me. He raised both arms to the blackened sky. From this night onward, my reign begins. Voice booming like Judgment Day thunder. At that moment, every dog in the village howled in unison. Every house burst into flames. Screams rose from every door because the king's undead army had spread. They poured through doors, shattered windows, dragged people into the night. The massacre had begun. Rashed stood frozen, watching his entire world burn and bleed. He realized with sickening clarity, before dawn, Kalodanga might cease to exist.
Kalodanga had become hell itself. Screams filled every corner, human cries of pure terror. Houses blazed, the red glow of flames painting the entire village in the color of blood. The king's undead soldiers swarmed like locusts. They smashed doors, dragged people from their beds, tore into flesh. Crunch, rip. The wet, brutal sound of bodies being shredded echoed everywhere. In front of one house, an old man tried to flee. A rotting corpse grabbed him from behind. Teeth sank into his throat. Crunch. Blood fountained into the air. Another undead ripped open his stomach. Intestines spilled onto the dirt in steaming coils. The whole village reeked of iron and rot. Meanwhile, Rashed ran with everything he had left. One thought burned in his mind: survive. But surviving wasn't enough anymore. He had to stop this monster. Suddenly, he remembered Maulana Karimuddin's dying words. "In my house, there is an old book, The Last Way." Rashed sprinted toward the Maulana's home. The house was nearly dark. The door hung half open. Inside, the air smelled of ancient paper and faint incense. He searched frantically. Then he saw it, a wooden chest in the corner. He flung it open. There it was, a black-bound book, strange symbol etched on the cover. Rashed opened it with trembling hands. Yellowed pages, Arabic incantations scrawled in faded ink, and one section written in fresh red: the incantation to destroy the King of the Jinn. His heart hammered. But below it, another line in the same red ink: "Whoever recites this spell will not survive." Rashed stood frozen for a moment. Faces flashed through his mind. Mizan, Sohel, every villager now dying outside. He whispered, "Even if I die, I will end this demon." Right then, a monstrous roar shook the walls. Rashed looked toward the window. His blood turned to ice. The King of the Jinn stood right outside, his colossal form silhouetted against the firelight, more terrifying than ever. In one massive hand dangled a human body. With casual brutality, he tore it in half. Crunch. Blood poured like rain onto the ground. Then he lifted his head. Those burning red eyes locked onto the window, onto Rashed. He laughed. "Ha ha ha ha!" The sound rolled like thunder. "I know you're in there, human. Come out." Rashed's hands shook, but he gripped the book tighter. His lips began to move. He started reciting the incantation, slowly, clearly. Suddenly, the wind inside the room whipped into a storm. Lights flickered on, unnatural white glow. The pages of the book flipped on their own. Outside, the king froze. His eyes widened in shock. He roared, "No! This spell!" The wind grew violent. Lightning cracked across the sky. Glowing runes began to burn into the earth around the house. The king thrashed, smoke pouring from his form. "Stop it!"
Rashed kept chanting, eyes closed, voice steady despite the pain. Blood began trickling from his nose. His body trembled violently, but he didn't stop, because if he did, the village died with him. Then, smash! The window exploded inward. Glass rained down. Rashed's eyes snapped open. His heart stopped. Rifat stood in the room, eyes blazing red. Blood smeared across his small face. He smiled slowly, twisted, inhuman. "You won't finish the spell." His claws extended, longer, sharper. He stepped forward. Outside, the king roared in fury. Rashed faced two paths now: finish the incantation or die trying. Inside the house, a storm raged without rain. Inside, a storm raged without rain. Rashed sat on the floor, clutching the ancient book. His lips trembled, but the incantation never faltered. Before him stood Rifat, small body, but eyes blazing with infernal fire. Rifat advanced slowly. His claws gleamed like polished knives. He snarled, "Stop!" But Rashed only chanted louder. Suddenly, Rifat lunged. Rip! Claws tore across Rashed's shoulder. Blood poured hot and fast. Rashed cried out in agony, but the words kept coming. Outside, the king roared in fury. With every line Rashed spoke, the monster's colossal form shuddered. Black smoke poured from his body like blood from a wound. He bellowed, "No, I will not be bound again." Rifat attacked once more. He seized Rashed by the throat, fangs bared. "End the spell." In Rashed's eyes burned something unbreakable. Through gritted teeth he forced out, "Today is your king's last day." Then he spoke the final line. Instantly, a deafening crack, like lightning splitting the heavens. The sky erupted in blinding white fire. From deep beneath the earth rose a colossal circle of pure light. It swallowed the entire village. The king screamed. His body ignited from within. Flames of divine white fire consumed the black smoke. He thrashed wildly, "No, human, you cannot defeat me." But the power did not relent. Fire rained from the sky. His massive horns cracked and shattered. His form unraveled into wisps of dying smoke. With one final earth-shaking roar, "I will return." Then, boom! A cataclysmic explosion of light and shadow. Darkness shattered. Silence fell like a blade. The wind died. The sky cleared. The undead soldiers crumbled to ash and dust. The village became still. Inside the ruined house, Rashed lay on the floor, his body soaked in blood. Rifat collapsed nearby, unconscious. His eyes returned to normal, just a small, innocent child again. Rashed managed a weak, peaceful smile. He understood. The king was gone. The village was saved. But the book had warned, whoever speaks this spell will not live. His vision blurred. His breathing slowed. With his last breath he whispered, "The village is safe." Then everything went quiet. Days later, Kalodanga began to heal. Survivors returned to ruined homes. Life crept back, slowly, painfully. In the center of the village now stood a small grave, a simple stone engraved, "Rashed, who gave his life to save us all." Rifat often came and stood before it. He remembered nothing of that night. Yet sometimes, without knowing why, tears filled his eyes. But the story does not end here. Deep in the jungle, where the explosion's light never fully reached, an old grave cracked open once more. From beneath the soil, black smoke stirred, and from the darkness came a faint, chilling whisper, "I am not finished yet." In the moonlight, two red eyes flickered to life again, watching, waiting.